Here's a clip.
Growing up, if there was anything the movies taught me about saying I love you, it was that the very best people to say it to are dogs. Like literal actual dogs. First movie I ever saw in the movie theater was White Fang. I loved dog movies. I loved Homeward Bound, Beethoven, Turner and Hooch. Homeward Bound was probably my number one. I love these movies, but the problem for me for a long time was that I didn't have a dog in my life with whom I could express that kind of affection. I had two Weimaraners, and if you know anything about Weimaraners, or if you don't, just picture a beautiful dog. They're beautiful dogs, but they're beautiful kind of in the way that a MacBook is beautiful. They have this really tight, fine, metallic, short coat and these icy blue eyes. They're not cuddlers. They were nice dogs. They were friendly and everything. They didn't hurt me, but they weren't cuddlers. So when I'd be watching Homeward Bound and I'd get to that scene toward the end where Shadow is limping up over that hill and he's expressing his inner feelings toward the boy Peter, and you hear him saying, like, "Oh, Peter, I worried about you so." I knew that there was no dog or animal in my life who held those kinds of feelings for me. So by the time I was 10 years old, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I saved up my allowance, I got a ride to the pet store, and I came home with my very own hamster. And this hamster was a brown guy. He had a white belly, and he had these black streaks down the side of his face that kind of reminded me of Chimney Soot, so I named him Chimmy. And I loved Chimmy. I brought Chimmy home one day, and the next morning, it was a Saturday morning, I got his cage and I put it on a chair that was level with the surface of my bed, and I climbed under my Batman Returns comforter, and I stared into the cage looking at Chimmy, and I just began to just pour forth all of these inane, affectionate platitudes that I had gathered from every dog movie I'd ever seen. So I'm staring into his cage and I'm saying things like, "Don't be afraid, little guy, I'm not gonna hurt you. You're my best friend. I love you." And I don't know how much I really did love Chimmy because I forgot about him. I left him there in his cage on the chair and went upstairs and I had breakfast, and when I came back down, I went to move his cage and Chimmy wasn't in the cage. The lid was popped off and suspiciously, Greta, the Weimaraner, was standing nearby. So we found Chimmy's body at the threshold of the family room entrance, which is just a few doors down from my bedroom, and I knew then at 10 years old that I had killed this hamster with my love. And I really, guys, I really wish that was the saddest part of what I'm telling you tonight, but it's not. Because after Chimmy, I got Butterscotch, and Butterscotch was the greatest hamster I had ever known or could ever hope to know. Butterscotch was like the friendliest. He was like the Shadowfax of hamsters. He was like the lord of all hamsters, and you could hold him in the palms of your hand. And his ears would be perked up, his eyes would be wide open, and he wouldn't be afraid, he wouldn't cower, he'd just chill with you because that was the kind of guy that Butterscotch was. So I had him for a couple months, and one night I was sitting in the living room on the carpet with my sister, and we were watching Unsolved Mysteries. And he was rolling around in a new hamster ball that we got for him. And we got to the commercial break, and Butterscotch was nowhere to be seen in the room. So I quickly got up, went to the kitchen, he wasn't there, went to the dining room, and there, up against the wall in the dining room, I saw his hamster ball popped open and pushed up against the wall. So quickly, very quickly after that point, I heard a shriek from the living room, and it was my sister, and I ran in there, and sure enough, there was Butterscotch's crumpled little body laying at my sister's feet, and of course nearby was Greta, the Weimaraner. So Butterscotch was still alive, and I picked up this little guy, and he was coughing or gasping or panting or something, but whatever he was doing, I was pretty sure that Butterscotch was dying, and I begged him not to die. I was 10 years old. So this was the single most cinematic moment of my entire young life, hands down. I mean, this is like way past like Old Yeller level. This was like Artax and Atreyu in the Swamp of Sadness kind of stuff. Like, this was like absolutely devastating stuff. Most cinematic moment. But at that moment, I wasn't thinking about the movies at all. I was just thinking about Butterscotch. And maybe, months earlier with Chimmy, I was phoning it in a little bit, thinking about the movies. In this case, it was just Butterscotch. And when I found myself saying a lot of the same stuff that I'd said to Chimmy, like, "Don't be afraid, you're my best friend, I love you," I was telling the truth. And Yeah, I loved Butterscotch at that moment. I really did. And I begged him not to die, but he did die in my hands. And we buried him the next day in a shoebox at the end of a fence in our backyard near a rope swing. And it was an unmarked grave. It still is to this day. But I like to think that if Butterscotch had a gravestone, the inscription would read, "Here lies Butterscotch Lewis. He was a dog among hamsters, and he was loved."
Great job.
Thank you.
A lot of fun. Thank you.